You're, well, not from the same hood, but
Landon, you ready for this?
Sure.
What are we going to sing first? New York, New York? No, but so the idea was a little bit to also, make this a very lively conversation. So if you thought you're going to be like back in school where you don't have to care what the people in the front are saying, this is not the case now. We really have Landon here to also be in conversation with you. So if you have questions or if there's something that you want to know about the work, about the practice, about Landon, please feel free to raise your questions. We will maybe even give you the microphone so it becomes more official. Yeah, it gets even more scary. But maybe I will start, because the question that we spent the past 3 days together, but we really didn't go into that topic, is your story with Copenhagen. Because it's a city that
it's a storied story.
Yeah, it's a story, but it's really like, we were very happy, when we decided to do this project in Copenhagen, and we were fortunate enough to find, or maybe who's our wonderful director here, she found that space for us. It was really interesting for us to speak to all the artists, to share the news that we are going to Copenhagen, that we are opening a gallery in this particular building. But the conversation was especially wonderful with you, because you have that whole story with the city. So to bring you back to Copenhagen after the pandemic, or after the one part of the pandemic, and to bring you back from a period where you have not been traveling so much, and to come to a city that has a big also function within your history and your work, was a very intense but also beautiful thing for us to do. I'm very happy the way you reacted to it. But maybe Copenhagen as a city, in comparison to other places, would be interesting for me, and I hope also for you, to hear a little bit your take on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I started coming here when I was 26 and just started hanging out and making friends, and it just kind of clicked. I met people and we had a good rapport, and something about my language, I think, just kind of connects here. I don't really know what it is. I can't give it a specific answer, I don't know. But I've had a good relationship with Copenhagen for like 11 years, for sure. I don't really think it's much crazier than that. It's just kind of like, over the years, I've always come back and had a nice time and had friends, and we've clicked, Copenhagen and I.
So you're looking forward to come back again?
Yeah, always. I love being here, and it does feel like it's a part of my story, for sure.
But there are rumors that you are going to come back in the summer.
Yeah, I'll be back in the summer. I'm always here in August. August is a great time to be here, for sure. But I'll be back in August for like a while, actually, for like maybe a month, I don't know, working on a special project that's not really art related. Something else.
So maybe you need a studio here. It would make our shipping topic much easier.
I would love a studio here. Yeah, if you guys know how to find one, let me know.
So if you have an idea for a studio, please let us know.
Yeah, it'd be super cool to work here, for sure. But yeah, I love Copenhagen. I think there's like an exchange too between Scandinavia and New York. Like, I don't know, Copenhagen and Stockholm seem to have a pretty close tie with New York somehow. I don't know what it is, but there's just something culturally that really connects back and forth really easily.
Maybe because, we also started this series, a conversation in a lighthouse. Of course, when we started to commit to this space, we were very intrigued by this landmark part of that building with the lighthouse. You are now reacting to that with the piece that you see up there. How did this come along? I mean, what was when we spoke about the space before you decided to do a piece like this, what was your reaction to a building like that, working normally with kind of classical gallery spaces? So the other galleries that you work with, including us with Basel, that is, I think, the most, let's say, most unexpected space to a certain extent.
I guess the lighthouse of this particular gallery, yeah, like the main space is like not super challenging. It's it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, but the lighthouse is obviously like something very special and unique. And my work, like part of the motifs of my language is dealing with sort of architectural interventions when they feel interesting or like pertinent or whatever. So like, if there's a situation like a lighthouse where it feels like something really beautiful or special or poetic or something, then yeah, obviously I'm going to try and use it. But yeah, the lighthouse is super beautiful.
Have you been up there?
Yeah. I actually hurt my leg going up there this morning. I don't know what happened. But yeah, it's cool. It's a really beautiful area. I actually don't know this part of Copenhagen super well. It's new to me, but I imagine what it was like when that place was built. It's very strange.
Definitely. I mean, it has a fun story. But I think that for us it was really also kind of interesting to have a space where you are able, I mean, you said that, you know, it's quite a normal space. I, of course, totally disagree. I think it's incredible.
It's very normal.
It's very fantastic. No, but I know what you mean. Of course, you have it can be a kind of a classical space for a show. But for us, you know, normally when you also get a gallery space, everything is very clearly defined. The beauty about this location is that there's so much things that we can still do and experiment with, and also use the outside area, which it is a beautiful space, but we just spoke about the disaster of what has been built. We're sitting in one of the I don't know, not their best take on architecture, but it's also for us very interesting that we can have a conversation with all the artists about what could happen on the outside of the building. So to a certain extent you are starting that conversation by taking it out from the gallery space and going into the lighthouse. So I thought that was really something that we wish for. So we already, as I told you, are very much looking forward to the next show. I'm sure you're going to take it to the next level again.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally.
But maybe, I mean, we have tons of things that we can talk about, but maybe you have some questions or things that you would like. We see. You want the microphone? You want to do it?
I don't know if it's necessary, because I've seen you through many years.
Yeah.
And I think what is new when you see it here is that normally you see it in a clear gallery space. And here it's more like a home. For clients, for my clients maybe, it's also easier to think about how would it look if it's not 5 meters to the ceiling and things like that. So in a way I think the space is not that bad. Because at the beginning I thought maybe it was a little bit difficult because you didn't have the space that you normally have to present things like that. And I was a little bit afraid with your kind of work, having seen it last time in Copenhagen in the big place in America, you know, where there were 200 or 300 paintings, which was fantastic.
I love that that's the number. 4,000 paintings.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
But I would say you get a new impression of your works if you see them here in another space. And I think that's interesting.
Cool, thank you. Thank you.
You also kind of went to very, very different architectural situations in Copenhagen. I mean, I think it's like you started in a group show, then you had a gallery in Copenhagen who also changed spaces. You had this fantastic situation with the library, and now you end up with the lighthouse. So that could also be kind of a beautiful story, because I guess, you know, if you look at your New York career, it has always been great galleries, but it was always kind of very, let's call it like classical white cube gallery spaces. I think that's also maybe something that Copenhagen is maybe also adding, let's call it like a different take or challenge to the work, or your approach?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, the spaces are always going to impact what happens. I think a part of, I don't think for sure, a huge part of my practice is sort of finding little forms of authorship as often as possible that don't necessarily belong to me, whether it's in the materials or the spaces or whatever. So when I'm conceiving an exhibition, obviously, like the narrative of the environment and the space and the place and sort of the storytelling of where it is and the culture that embodies it, and all these things come into play for sure. And I try to be sensitive to those sort of expectations and how we move through those environments and how we interact with the work. And it's always very subtle, but it's always very cared for sure.
When you look back to the last, I mean, I think most of the people remember your big installation at the library, you know, where it was really about, it was such a strong take about also the proportion of that space, and kind of these 11 slots that you had per row, this kind of height, this kind of whole architectural take on that you could actually pass each corridor, but there was also this kind of like language of colors within the piece. With this exhibition also, as the title says, you know, it was a total different approach. Is there a particular reason that you focused on this kind of color scheme for this show, or was it just coming together naturally?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think like I was kind of dreaming about the lighthouse a lot when conceiving the show. I think it kind of started there. And the title is like just this very playful take on something that I think about a lot, which is sort of our experience of reality and how our sort of, our like, you know, our body, our organism translates that and creates like a projection of reality. And also our culture and our families and our societies and our impressions of our individual selves and all these things and how they impact our perceptions of reality and how we move through the world. And so the title it's silly in a way. It's like, it's not much. It's just acknowledging something very like simple and obvious, which is like, the sky really has no color. Our unique relative position and experience creates this like perception of blue, and that sort of like, I don't know, not like necessarily a truth, but like something about like our existence that is hidden in the gaps is something that I think about a lot, and I try and like leave a lot of sort of peripheral language in my work, and everything's always kind of bleeding towards something else or acknowledging something else or kind of existing in these spaces or gaps between the objects. And so yeah, the title was kind of embodying this thing, that like a recurring motif throughout my practice. And the colors, for better or for worse, are in some way actually like almost like a literal interpretation of that. I think it's like they are embodying something that kind of experience also communicates.
So this is called the Q&A. So you feel free to ask questions if you want to. I mean, we can do this for another 3.5 hours. Really, no problem at all. But if so you're just coming for the Q&A part. So feel free to jump in. No, but maybe if you have a question or is there something that is you would like to know, please let us know. It's really like in school. The moment you do that, everyone goes like, everyone looks at the floor. It's like, okay.
I'm wondering about like this piece that's up in the lighthouse. Maybe can you talk a little bit about how you think of the spectator and how it's supposed to be like. Is there multiple ways of experiencing it, seeing it like from the lighthouse, or is it only the point of view looking up to the lighthouse? I mean, it's beautiful how it's sort of like connecting the title and the sky and the work down there. It makes like a really nice triangle.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
Could you say something about it?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I like that it's like very obscured, that like it's kind of broken apart by these windows and the reflection in the glass, and it's also kind of very sky blue, so it's almost kind of camouflaged, especially in the daylight. I keep waiting for the sun to set, which is like happening weirdly slowly. But yeah,
welcome
so like,
to Scandinavia.
I know, I don't want to see the lights on so I can see what it looks like in the dark. I think it's gonna be really beautiful. I haven't seen it yet.
Is it lit in the dark?
Yeah, there's gonna be a light.
So it's going to be backlit?
There's a light below it encircling it, so we'll see. I'll see it for the first time with you. I don't know.
So is it like the lighthouse light?
Yeah.
It was just installed, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Wow.
It should be cool. I haven't seen it, but yeah, I think that like what's really like beautiful about just like the lighthouse itself and the way that the paintings are like kind of occupying that space is that the language is being broken up and it's kind of like dissolving into its surroundings, and I think it's like it's bringing up a lot of these questions of like notions of like individualist self versus like kind of more ecological notion of self, which is something that comes up in my work a lot. And so those really simple like obvious gestures are really important to me. And the work is across eight panels, and it's actually it's the same motif twice. So it across those 8 panels, it does repeat itself 2 times. Again, kind of playing, it's simply, but just kind of playing with that notion of like repetition and seriality and how that kind of like, I don't know, imposes itself on notions of self. Yeah. What was the question exactly, though? I can't
No,
remember.
it was more like say something. About
That's the lighthouse work. I mean, it's cool.
Good question. You already answered.
Okay, cool.
But
Yeah.
what's actually the function of? What was the function of the lighthouse? I've been thinking about.
I don't know.
Once upon a time.
The
Why
story-
did you need a
What's the
lighthouse
history
here?
of this building?
The story that I've heard, which I am no historian or like specialist, but from what I've heard is like this area was the Carlsberg brewery area, and they worked here as well. And I guess at some point that was more visible from like more in the city. I guess when it was constructed.
It was it was one of the first places with electricity.
So you could see that from
Yeah.
a distance, I
Yeah.
guess. So in a way, I guess it was kind of turning this like Carlsberg area into some sort of beacon. I don't know.
So it was like the laser beams that the
Yeah.
architects have
We sometimes put when there's no show and we don't have a piece in there, we put the Batman sign in there. But no, the thing is that this used to be the house for the gatekeeper, because the gate is just next to it,
Okay.
So they had to have a house for the gatekeeper because it was a 24/7 situation. And because it was one of the first places to have electricity, and we actually are at one of the highest points in the city, that's why they thought it is interesting to create this kind of lighthouse situation. I mean, Carlsberg has already proven that they have a bit of a sense of humor by putting the elephants there and so on. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a little bit in the tradition, and also to create a surrounding which is just not just a normal gatehouse. But I think that Hester knows more about. Did that sound correct? Approximately. Perfect. Spot on. Okay. No, we know that much about the building. We also learn more and more about the beauty of the building that it had within this area. But of course, this area stands for a lot of changes over the past 100 years. By first, a company growing like crazy because we all love beer, and then secondly, by a development that we benefit by the fact that we can have the building, but the area itself has changed, maybe not only to the best by creating all these new buildings, but I think it's for us it was really interesting when we decided to go for this building, to also know that right now it's kind of very much an in-between situation. That means all of this still has to get alive, and now it's kind of quiet and peaceful. Trust me, between Monday and Friday afternoon, this is not a quiet and peaceful place. There's so much construction work still going on, and you see it on the streets. It's really not very clean and so on. But we very much trust in the change of this area, but also for us that was also interesting to do something with the lighthouse that it would have never become otherwise, to become a place for art. And I think that's for us something that we also liked as a challenge. So please come back. It would only get better.
Sure.
Yes.
I could also ask you about your sculpturing, because mostly I knew about your paintings, of course.
Yeah.
But now I saw that you have made a multiple in Pietra Santa.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how much you did in sculpture. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I mean that particular medium, which is bronze. If you don't know it, you probably don't. I did this bronze edition thing, and it was kind of presented to me by a friend who works with this foundry. So it's a total experiment for sure. The sculpture works that I've done in the past have all kind of used like painterly vocabularies, They're also kind of re-emphasizing sort of flatness of painting, and this one doesn't. It's very three-dimensional, it's very round. So yeah, it's totally an experiment, but there are things about it that I really love. Like, it's these two forms that are sort of coming together, and they're kind of supporting one another, and there's this relationship between the two forms that feels very dynamic, and also the like hyper-reflective polish is like very polished. That like mirror finish surface, and the way it kind of like sucks the environment into it. I feel like it's like embodying a lot of the sort of philosophies of the rest of my practice in a new way. It's interesting. It's cool to
So
see it kind of.
again.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I would love to see them like at a large scale and in different applications, and like repeating and living in the world in different ways. Like, for sure, I could totally see it. Yeah. But in the past, sculpture has been more painterly for me. I've done like dyed canvas sculptures and things like this, but it was very much related to the painting practice before. Yeah.
Any more questions? Everyone wants to run back and take another look at the show. Okay, so we should do that. Thank you very much, Landon.
Of course.
This was great. Thank you very much for joining, and yeah, thank you.